Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vivagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Tava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanantam Satiguru Pranatoshmaham Om Shanti 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 Om. Namaste. Welcome to our continuation of Vivekachudamani. We begin today from the verse 40. 40. Okay. Let me see who else is in here. No, okay. So whosoever has good connection, please keep the video on. So the verse 40, how does bondage happen? So now we want to understand, so how we found ourselves in this situation. So you know, we know that we shine with consciousness and we shine with existence. So now, how I become bound to objects, that's the question here. How do I become bound to matter, to things, to people, and feel limited and so on? So we want to know, how does this happen? And then the verse 40, Shankara says that Maya's predominant power, called tamas, covers beginningless, effulgent, non-dual awareness as an eclipse covers the sun. So this bondage comes about once Maya begins operating, and by its most predominant power called tamas, it apparently covers, conceals this beginningless, limitless, self-effulgent, non-dual, conscious existence awareness. So the Maya has this power, which is similar to the shade caused by the eclipse of the sun. Okay, so we have the moon covering the sun, and then we experience its shade. So Maya is like a power that produces this shade. You know, shade is a nice symbolism to describe darkness or lack of knowledge. Light is a symbol of knowledge. So the student wants to know how this bondage has come about. What is the precise cause for this forgetting of one's true nature and believe itself, believe he or her to be what? To be matter, to be the not self. The not self is matter. But the self is the spirit, it's consciousness. So everything else is just matter, subtle matter or dense matter. But matter is matter after all. So how does that come about? So what has happened? I want to know the exact cause of this ignorance. And I don't accept this ignorance. I want to remove this ignorance, but yet I need to understand its mechanics. You know, how does this comes about? So in order for us to remove something, we need to really know what it is, and we need to understand, you know, its values. You know, if it's really valuable, you know, to live under a certain impact, a certain impression, a certain shade. Huh? So that we can be sure about our value for the removal of this certain power. So we need to know exactly what it is before we are fully convinced that we need to remove it. So the teacher refers again to the mysterious Maya. So as we know, Maya is that which makes the impossible possible, is that which exists but does not really exist, that which is not really real, but yet brings about the projection of the universe. It's very mysterious because we know that Maya does exist because we understand its effect. But since Maya is the subtlest power or energy or set of energies in media, so it's so subtle that there is no way our intellect power can objectify and see, understand it directly through the sense and the mind. We cannot even conceptualize Maya because Maya is so subtle that it becomes something like beyond the intellectual understanding, like the scriptures refer or say here and there. So the teacher refers again to the mysterious power called Maya, in particular to that veiling power. We are talking about tamas here. So Maya's predominant power called tamas. Tamas is the concealing, the covering, the veiling power, is that which somehow makes the non-dual self appear to be dual, plural and reverse and so on. So that which one without a second becomes an infinity of names, colors, and forms. So this is all due to this Maya, and its most fundamental power is called, it's not tamas, it's avarana. Okay, it's the concealing power. Okay, it's just, it's covering, it's concealing, it's eclipsing, veiling power, which casts a shadow as it were over self-luminous awareness. So it apparently casts a shadow as it were over the self-luminous awareness. We know that awareness is just self-luminous, self-shining, self-effulgent, self-evident, self-lightening, and there is nothing that can really obscure this power of consciousness, but somehow Maya makes it in a way that awareness becomes what? Becomes the jiva. Awareness becomes the jiva. Why awareness becomes the jiva? Because jivas are the knowing experience entities on which awareness shines to become self-conscious, aware. So we are not, we are not little things. We are big things. We are just here, to shine with the light of our own nature as awareness, so that we can understand that we are awareness. So how does this self that shines in the mind of every jiva, suffers from this power called avarana, and immediately does not understand its nature, and then immediately start believing or identifying with matter, with the body, and with other objects. So that is the mystery of Maya, with this veiling power which casts a shadow, as it were, over self-luminous awareness. So how can something that is self-luminous really be obscured for any small eclipse here and there? It does not. It just shines through everything. It reveals anything. It reveals ignorance as well. You understand? It reveals that the snake is not a snake. It was just a misapprehension of the rope. So it does not really exist in this Maya. This Maya is something so incredible because it does not have any substance of its own. It's just the absence of clear apprehension of what is. The comparison is made between Maya and the shadow that appears to cover the sun during an eclipse. A shadow is an independent reality. The shadow is not an independent reality. It's not something on its own. It has no substance. It's rather the absence of light. but it has no power to obscure that which is real, that which is self-luminous. Never obscures the light of awareness because it's just a power that apparently conceals, or obscures the self-effulgent light of consciousness, but it does not really do so. So what it means, the shadow is not something independent. So does the shadow has a life on its own? No. It depends on something that somehow produce a lack of knowledge, a lack of, clear understanding. It's some things in there that produce what we call ignorance. But what is ignorance but absence of knowledge, or mistaken knowledge, mistaken perception, mistaken understanding. That's what it is, But what is this ignorance? It's just the the inability of understanding reality, of really seeing things for what they are. That's what it is, the power of overrunning. Maya presents objects to awareness that are in reality mere reflections of awareness. So everything is awareness. So awareness, when it shines in Maya, this macrocosm, mirror-like apparatus, it's just produced this infinity of objects. So these objects are just small projections or superimpositions that are just reflections of awareness on Maya. Not all objects reflect awareness with the same clarity. So as we know, there are some objects that are going to what? To reflect awareness like a mirror or like a lake. So when we have the light, bouncing on a lake, on a mirror, it reflects it beautifully. On the other hand, if we have light hitting a dark wall or mud, we're gonna have almost no reflection. Both are objects. The clear lake or the mud next to the lake, both are objects. But some objects have more reflectivity than others. So Maya presents objects to awareness that are in reality mere reflections of awareness. But not all objects reflect awareness with the same clarity. Tamas is a very poor reflector of consciousness. Tamas has this capacity or this quality of taking, of absorbing light, and it does not reflect consciousness. We have these analogies to illustrate this tamas. Tamas is like a lake that somehow got flooded by a monsoon and with a lot of mud, and then it became totally muddy and yellow, and then it no longer reflects the sun, thus no longer reflects the moon in the night. Understand? It became muddy. So that is the nature of something that no longer reflects consciousness. And all the objects, the inert objects we have in creation, the mineral and the vegetal and all the bodies, even of the jivas, they are just inert. The bodies that we have, this physical body, they don't really reflect consciousness. What reflects consciousness is our subtle body. Subtle body is what reflects consciousness and animates the body, the physical body. If we want to say that the body is self-alive, animated, no, it's not. It's animated by the subtle body, which is, is illumined, it's vivified, enlivened by consciousness. You understand? So it's one within the other. But the physical, material objects, they are just inert, they are just like mud, and they do not reflect consciousness. Tamas is such a poor reflector that awareness cannot recognize itself. How can we recognize consciousness in a pen? So the pen is not self-conscious, is not sentient, you know, it's just inert. So everything in existence that is inert, it has no perception, there has no consciousness of its existence, you know, has no self-consciousness, is mostly constituted by tamas. So that is the nature of tamas is a very poor reflector of consciousness. Tamas is like mud. Of course, in talking about Maya and its powers, we are using words to describe something that's only apparently real and only a passing phenomenon. So Maya is a persistent phenomenon, and it does not really exist. It exists, but it's not real. It's almost like non-existence, but yet it has the power to produce a video, yeah? To all jivas. All jivas suffer from this inability to really recognize one's nature as consciousness about. It is a passing phenomenon. It's a persistent passing phenomenon. But with time, the jiva develops purity of mind, clarity of mind, more sattva, you know, more subtlety, and so on. And then this tamas start losing its dominance in one's mind, and then the mind becomes more and more sattvic, and then the reflector is a better reflector, and then the individual jiva has the power to understand the true nature of reality, the true nature of the I, of the self. Otherwise, it's a passing phenomenon, a persistent phenomenon, but comes to an end. Sooner or later, it does come to an end. This entire discussion about tamas offers an explanation that upon closer examination begs the question. To say that tamas veils the self as a shadow veils the sun during an eclipse is merely a metaphorical way of saying that somehow and quite mysteriously the self does not recognize the self and takes itself to be the world. So from the philosophical standpoint, to say that this power of Maya called tamas veils the self, which is something impossible to be conceived. It's just an appearance. It seems to say that it veils the self and makes the self identify with matter is something absurd, to say the least. But yet, it appears to be the case. If we look to our own experience as jivas, the ones shining with consciousness, it appears to be the case. We take ourselves to be matter, we take the world of objects to be real, and we get caught up in samsara. So again, to say that tamas veils the self as a shadow veils the sun during eclipse is merely a metaphorical way. Why? Of saying that somehow and quite mysterious, the self does not recognize the self and takes itself to be the world. So the self becomes the jiva, so to speak. Why it apparently becomes the jiva? Because the jiva is not really real. The jiva is consciousness appearing as the body-mind construct. Understand? We have to again and again go back to those metaphors, our traditional metaphors. So to believe that the rope is the snake, it makes us feel like, wow, now we have a big problem here. This snake is big and very, very dangerous and so on. So now how are we going to kill the snake and so on? So no, there is no snake. To believe that is a reality is just the absence of the knowledge that the snake is the rope. Likewise, so we don't understand that we are consciousness, we are existence, our fundamental nature. And because we don't really understand that due to this pervasive universal power of Maya, and then we as the self, we take what? We take the world of matter and energy to be real. So we take myself, I, the self, now I became the world. I became the world. I became the Jiva. I became Ishvara. So how can the self not recognize itself? It apparently dies. Every time the apparent Jiva comes into the play, and then consciousness appearing as the Jiva, and seemingly forgets its true fundamental nature existence as consciousness. That's the meaning. So, anybody, everyone clear about this so far? So feel free to interact. Maya cannot be explained or defined because it has no being. How can we explain this snake? How can we explain the snake, that appears on the rope? What kind of real existence this snake has? How can we make any sense of it? How can we remove the snake? How can we kill the snake? There is only one way, is to see through and understand the fundamental nature of the snake, understand the fundamental nature of matter as consciousness, the fundamental nature of the body-mind complex as consciousness. We need to look through and understand our nature. That's all there is to it. Maya cannot be explained or defined because it has no being in itself. It's just a projection, appearance, a superimposition. Yet it produces an apparent effect. What is the effect of Maya? Is ignorance. Ignorance of the self and fear, attachment to other objects, suffering. That is the byproduct of this incredible Maya. How can all the jivas of the universe behave in such a way just due to their own self-ignorance? You understand? They just apparently they forget who they are, and then they begin acting in certain ways. Yet it produces an apparent effect, ignorance. Can that which is unreal cause a real effect? Obviously not. So Maya, we have already determined it's not real. It's a power, it's something inherent to consciousness, but it's not consciousness. It's like a talent, something that somehow projects avidya, projects ignorance, projects duality on consciousness and so on. But how can a byproduct of something that which is not real be real? So this world of energy, matter, names and forms cannot really be real. It has no being. Maya has no being. And the effects of Maya has no being as well. So this ignorance like Maya is mithya. It is, but it is really not there. It is, but it's not really there. We experience its effect due to the misapprehension of its fundamental reality, or fundamental essential nature. The same way that we experience affliction with the snake if we don't realize the snake to be the rope. Should we try to describe and discuss the nature of the snake, we run into difficulties because there is no snake. So how can we analyze what kind of snake? Is this snake poisoned? And so is this snake sleeping, going to turn right, going to turn left? Is it going to jump on me? So I need to somehow try to understand this snake. How can I try to discuss and understand the nature of a snake if the nature of the snake is just ropiness? There is no snakeness there. Understand? So there is no way. So the same is the case when we try to understand Maya and its effects. If we are just analyze things that are not really what they seem to be, we run into difficulties because there is no snake. There is no need for fear. There is no dangers there. There is nothing to be afraid of. But just as the snake, though unreal, produces an effect, fear, so Maya, though unreal, produces an effect, which is ignorance of the self. So Maya does produce that. It produces this world of names and forms and infinity of objects. And among all these objects, there comes the jivas. And the jivas, they having this shining consciousness that allows them to know and understand. I know I exist, and I know that I exist. And jivas go about interacting, transacting the world of objects, and they are lost because they are not really understanding one's true nature. They take itself, this conscious, this reflection of consciousness to be the body and the mind, and they feel insecure, vulnerable, afraid, and so on, limited. But just as the snake, though unreal, produces an effect, which is fear, so Maya, though unreal, produces an effect, ignorance of the self. But if we think about Maya and ignorance for a certain time, a length of time, if we really examine Maya, we examine the effects of Maya and so on, the concepts dissolve, for they have no substance. So Maya as a concept dissolves. Maya is just a utilitarian kind of tool to help us to understand this projection of the universe. It's just something to facilitate our understanding. Dayananda used to say the Maya is a concept that is just utilitarian. It's good for use. It's available for use. But it's not reality. Just for us to understand. What is in there between your nature's consciousness and the appearance of this world? Nothing comes about without a cause. And your nature as light of consciousness does not do anything. Therefore, you cannot really cause anything on your own. We cannot cause anything. We are just shining our light of existence, of consciousness, without doing anything. We are a car. So since this universe comes into appearance, we must recognize a cause to that. And the cause is not what we are, is a certain power which somehow is closely related to us, but it has no being itself. The being of Maya is something, comes from consciousness, my own existence. Somehow this Maya appears as something that cannot be comprehended, understandable clearly, intellectually. But we know that there is a cause to this universe, and I know that I don't cause anything by consciousness. So if we want to be free of bondage, we need only to think about Maya for a time, and the shadow of ignorance will go. Swami Dayananda often speaks of the apparent manifestation of Maya as available for use. They neither exist nor are they non-existent. So Maya neither exists nor do not exist. So how can we define something, with those kind of denomination, qualification? It exists but does not exist. Is but is not. They neither exist nor they non-existent. They have what might be best described as a provisional function on the phenomenal plane. It has a provisional function, a period provisional function on the phenomenal plane. This structuring of words is the inevitable accompaniment of any extended discussion on Maya, for it is ultimately impossible to talk about Maya, because Maya is that which has no reality, has no existence in itself. There is no substance to it. There is no reality. So it's very, very difficult, this discussion about Maya, because it's extremely subtle. And the scriptures, they say again and again that it's not really understandable to the human intellect. Why? because Maya is the most subtle of the subtle in terms of meteor. In meteor, everything comes out of energy, energy, the three energies, the three basic primary energies, sattva, rajas, and tamas. So we have these energies, and then out of this, and this is what constitutes Maya. Maya is the power that brings about these three energies, and out of these three energies, it produces Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat, the universe of names and forms. So we have this, and this power is so subtle, so subtle. And this power produces Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat. And Jiva develops certain intellect, and this intellect trying to go back and understand Maya, which is its cause. Maya is the cause of everything. So the intellect does not have the mental power to really understand its cause. We understand that we are an effect of Maya, but we have no means to really objectively understand Maya. So that is the trouble. So any kind of attempt we do to understand Maya brings us into these torturing words, which is an inevitable accompaniment of any extended discussion. For it's ultimately impossible to talk about that which has no substance. It's like trying to capture a patch of a fog or chasing a shadow, or like trying to draw the venom out of the snake in the rope. So this is a nice one. So we have the snake. Now we need to extract the venom of this snake. We need to first hit it, kill it, and then kill or hurt it, and then let's at least make it harmless. So we are doing all of that with something that has no reality by itself. It's just an appearance. It's just the beginning of this superimposition. It's the cause of this superimposition. Okay, shall we move on?
Arlindo, may I ask? I have confusion about the words predominant power. And I kind of think about the gunas as rotating and not really having one. Does that just mean in terms of Avaruna, predominantly responsible for Avaruna, or?
Yeah, I would say.
Hierarchy of the gunas?
I would say so. Yeah, it's difficult. Because the most predominant power, we would have to say that is sattva, because it's the intelligent cause. It's the most subtle of the three energies, That is the energy out of which the other two energies develop. That would be the most essential energy. Yeah. So, but tamas is the energy responsible for what? For the universe. Maya, predominance power, covering, non-dual awareness, and eclipse. So Maya, this power of Maya, tamas, is responsible for this universe of names and forms, of physical material. The physical material and universe is a product of Maya. Everything that we see, which is physical material, substantial physical material, including our bodies and everything, it's mostly tamas. It's the most predominant. Everything in the universe is a configuration of the three energies, but every time we see some physical, the walls of a house, anything that is physical material is predominantly tamas. Tamas is responsible for this universe of this physical material universe. Understand? So it may be in that way. And it is this tamas, and it is this energy which does not have much reflectivity that cause what we know as avidya, our inability to really understand what's going on, understand the nature of reality, understand what we are. This inability of this, like Shimai used to say, the misapprehension the non-apprehension, of reality produce automatically the misapprehension. So it appears as if avarana is the inability to understand, and that is due to the dominance of tamas in our minds. Our subtle body is constituted by a lot of sattva, but it would not stand without the other two energies. You understand? So we need this mirror-like, this reflector we call the subtle body. It requires the three energies, and the five subtle elements, so to be constituted. And then they're going to reflect and make us to be self-conscious. So we have enough tamas there that produce this avidya, this inability to apprehend, to understand, to see things, to know things as they are. So Shimai used to say that the non-apprehension of reality as it is immediately produce what? The misapprehension of reality as matter, as the universe, as the body, as energy. You understand? The non-apprehension produces a misapprehension. In other words, avarana is going to produce this inability of ours to understand our true nature, and then as a solution, it produces the misapprehension, and the non-apprehension produces misapprehension. So avarana and vikshepa, they are just two sides of the same coin. They live together, they exist together, It's the non-apprehension produces a misapprehension because, the mind wants to know what's going on, and it just comes up with an answer. Yes, I am the body, I am the mind, and the world of diversity, plurality of names and forms is real, and so on. Is that all right, Lynn?
Excuse me, Arlindo.
Yes, Mario.
Please. So, if all sprout not only from and as consciousness, but as a power of consciousness called Maya, and there is no reality in Maya, so there is no reality in body, mind, and the world.
Right.
So is it too much to say that there is no real reality except consciousness, not even in so real mind, body, and the world?
So if I understood what you are driving for, where you're going, you say that if there is no reality in Maya, and Maya produced the world, and in the world the jivas come and appears. So how can we say that the jiva, the jiva, am the only reality as Brahman, if everything that is an effect of Maya is not real, right? And that is a very important question, because the jiva, Mario, the jiva is not the subtle body.
Yeah.
The subtle body is just energy, it's subtle matter. But in that subtle body, an incredible phenomenon arise, which is this self-consciousness that we experience. Every one of us experience our self-conscious existence. You understand? So this shining consciousness, or this reflection of a consciousness that occurs in our subtle body, produce something called the Jivatma. Now we have Paramatma, and Jivatma. What is common of these two factors, these two principles? What is common? What is the common denominator? Atma.
Atma, consciousness.
Yeah. So we have the self and the reflect self. What is the common denominator? The self. So the jiva is not the subtle body. The jiva is the light of consciousness reflect in the subtle body. You understand? And has the power to understand that and say, Tatvamasi, I am the one with the Brahman.
Yes, 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 yes.
Aham,
Yes, yeah.
aham,
I'm just pointed to that when Maya is properly understood as what it is, then it's perfectly clear that I'm that I'm consciousness, that
yeah,
I'm Brahma.
yeah.
Yeah,
You know that.
that,
I know that you know that. You just trying to understand how you know that. You know that because you are that.
yes, 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 just that. Yeah, yeah.
You
So
know?
I'm finding this Maya teaching very, very important. As once it's is illusion as a seed, as an
Yeah.
illusion, then nothing is left, just reality, and that is
Yes.
very, very simple. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. You see, a lot of people say, "Oh, I mean, why I'm going to bother to go into Mitya, understand the three bodies, and understand Shiva, Ishvara, and Jagata, if none of this is real? So let's talk reality here. I want to talk about real, but you know, reality can only be apprehended, understood in the no-reality, because
Yeah, yeah,
we need a reflector, and the reflector is not
yes,
real. What's
yes,
real is the reflection that occurs in that no reality called the reflector, you know?
yes,
Subtle body is not real because it's just matter, but the reflection is consciousness. So what is the distinction? What is the difference between the light and a reflection of the light once it bounces on a mirror somewhere? You know, you have light rays before and you have light rays after. The nature of both light rays are the same, it's just light rays. You understand? So we are the light of consciousness. One of the most beautiful metaphors about what we are is I am the light of consciousness. James loves to say that, you know? I am the light. Oh, you're going to get enlightened. I said, me getting enlightened? Come on, man. I am the light. How can I not get enlightened? I am the light by which other people get enlightened, you know? So that is a fact. We are the light. Okay, verse 41. There will be more on Maya here. Awareness is free of impurities, but when it's eclipsed by ignorance, the individual takes the body to be the self. It is then afflicted with the strong power of rajas and subject to binding desire, anger, and hatred. So now we begin getting into more personal things, you know, stuff, experience. So now we're talking about the jiva, not really Maya, but the effects of Maya, which is the jiva. Consciousness appears in duality as what? As the jiva, the experience, knowing self-reflected, the reflecting jivas, you know, where the consciousness is shining. So that's why philosophically we say awareness, consciousness apparently becomes the jiva. Why? Because it's shining, you know, in the subtle bodies of all these constructs of three bodies called jivas. Awareness free of impurity, as we know, is pure. You know, it's one without any addiction to it. There are no inclusions to it. You know, something that is so pure is free of any impurity. What it means? It means that there is nothing other than I. You know, in the universe, there is nothing really pure. Once Maya comes into place and they start blending the elements, and then they start, you know, configuring all these different kind of objects, any and everything in the universe is never pure. Nobody managed to, even through certain chemical process, to bring about a metal that is totally pure. It's impossible. There are always inclusions to everything. But consciousness, awareness, is the only one without any inclusions. It's pure, 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 pure. It's before Maya brought about inclusions. Okay? So awareness is free of impurities. But when it is apparently eclipsed by Maya, by ignorance, what happens? It happens that the jivas appear as the individual, and immediately consciousness takes the body of the jiva to be the self, and the consciousness is going to say, I, you know. But this I is going to be no longer the pure I, because it's going to be identified with the body-mind construct. Okay, it's no longer the pure consciousness existence, but it's the pure consciousness existence identified with the body-mind, associated with the body-mind. The individual jiva takes the body to be the self. And then what happens to the poor jiva? It then gets afflicted with the strong power called rajas and subject to binding desire. So when the jiva takes the body, when consciousness takes the body to be the self, the I, now what happens to it? So consciousness that is pure, limitless, unconcerned, you know, independent, free, and so on, immediately it becomes limited, concerned, afraid, vulnerable, you know. And then what it does, it starts running to gain things so that it can find security, satisfaction, peace. It starts developing all these binding desires to gain things, to remove this sense of limitation, this sense of incompletion, yeah? This sense of insecurity, vulnerability, and so on. It starts going and producing desires. Yes, now I am somehow enclosed in this body-mind, so to speak. Consciousness immediately associates with the body, say, I, the body, and then I start just producing all these desires that in due time they become what? They become addictions, binding desires again and again. I want this, I want security, I want more, I want to find more security, more satisfaction, more pleasure, more contentment, and I need everything, and I need people, things, place, circumstance, and situation. I need all these things because I got totally, you know, identified as the body due to this power called Maya, ignorance, avidya. So it produced these binding desires, and then with the desires, what it comes is a long list of negative, uncomfortable human emotions, such as dependence, expectation, frustration, irritation, anger, competition, jealous, and you know, and the list is very long. They are all this long list of very uncomfortable negative emotions is due to this binding desire to get things. And then this is rajas. I want things because I want to solve this problem. And every time my desires get obstructed, you know, what happens? And then I go through all these emotions, you know. Some people, they kick and scream, and, you know, they throw a tantrum and they break things. And, you know, in my early days, I used to kick doors sometimes. I never kicked cats or dogs, but I kicked 1 or 2 doors when I was young. So all of that is a sign of this strong power called rajas that wants things to secure and to solve this sense of limitation and incompletion. And then every time I don't get what I want, and then this rajas is just building up, and I'm getting frustrated, and then I go through all these negative emotions. It's then afflicted with strong power of desires, rajas. The veiling power is said to conceal from us the knowledge that we are limitless, pure, unconcerned awareness. So this is the power of not really knowing what we really are, you know, our essential, fundamental, free nature. So this is the power called avarana. It conceals from us the knowledge of our true nature. You know? And then the other power that comes is the power of vikshepa, desire, that is going to try to solve this problem. Now that I have mistaken myself to be the body mind, I feel like, ooh, limited, and now I have to go and chase things. So this is the power of rajas, tamas and rajas that go hand in hand. So we only recall deep sleep in the awakened state. Why are you talking about deep sleep here? The veiling power is such to conceal from what is the knowledge that we are pure aware. In deep sleep, we don't know object, but we also don't know the self. So that's very nice in the deep sleep. So we don't know any object. So I am ignorant, but when I go to deep sleep, all the objects that usually I'm chasing to get or chasing to avoid or running to avoid, all of that disappears. I experience peace, So my ignorance appears as if it was removed because the effects of my ignorance was what chasing objects. And then in the deep sleep, there are no objects. I experience peace. So the effects of my ignorance, they were removed. But the problem is that my ignorance was not removed. And how do we know that? Because when we get up, when we come out from deep sleep, we don't remember who we are. We only recall deep sleep in the awakened state. So here in deep sleep, we don't know objects, so it feels really cool. There are no duality, no plurality, nothing to gain, nothing to avoid. The duality, subject, object, collapse, and so on. But then the fundamental problem, which is my ignorance in respect to my true nature, was not there. The effects of this ignorance was not there. It was all cool. But then when I get up, when I come up from my deep sleep, my ignorance of the self remains. So we only recall this deep sleep in the awakened state. We remember that we did not know anything. This can only mean that we were somehow present during this period of blankness, which we later established by inference in the awakened state. So when we remember that we did not experience anything, we did not know anything, and moreover, we know that we really enjoy so much those hours of deep sleep without any dream. So what is the indication? The indication, the meaning, what it implies, the implied meaning is that if I really enjoyed so much, it means that somehow I was experiencing it, because I only appreciate what I have really enjoyed. And if I have enjoyed something about me, have really experienced it, That's the point here. We only recall deep sleep in the awakened state. We remember that we did not know anything, that there was no problems were there, no objects were there. This can only mean that we were somehow present during this period of deep sleep, blankness, which we later established by inference in the waking state. In the waking state, we say, oh, what a good time I was having there. Please, Ishwara, don't take my sleep away. We should make a song like that. Mario, you're a musician. Please,
Yes.
don't take my sleep away.
Sleep away.
So when we later established by inference in the awakened state. So we know that time somehow was interrupted, and we infer deep sleep by recalling the time before and the time after this blankness. So we understand that, but we know that there was incredible experience of peace there. So the effects of this avidya, this ignorance, was not present, and we had a good time, but the real ignorance was never addressed. Therefore, when we wake up, we don't know that we are the self. Time is measured by the succession of thoughts. If there are no thoughts, there is no time. Deep sleep must be the recollection of the experience of timelessness, which is the same as thoughtlessness, yet awareness remains. Or where would awareness go? So this makes a nice analysis or parallel. Bring time into the experience of deep sleep. So if there are no objects, because objects is nothing but the thought of an object. If there are no thought objects in deep sleep, and time is nothing but a succession between a thought object, another thought object. We can say that is the interval between two thoughts object. We can say that is the time, that a duration time of one thought object we experience. We can kind of measure time in those terms, you understand? So if thoughts were not there, objects were not there, and then the implied meaning is that there is no time, and it's understandable. We feel to be timeless. And timeless is one of our nature. Our nature is timelessness, limitlessness. So we are that which is beyond time. There is no time for us. So all of that indicates this experience of deep sleep as something in which we are there as awareness, or in other words, as a pranya jiva, that is something so subtle, that is sometimes is present as consciousness experiencing itself, or experience the blankness, the absence of duality. So deep sleep must be the recollection of the experience of timelessness, which is the same as thoughtlessness, no objectlessness, yet awareness remains. Why? Because awareness must be there to reveal thought, objects, time, and timelessness, right? So consciousness is the light in which present all of these things come and go, including timelessness, include blankness, absence of objects, and so on. All of that's an object. The absence of object is an object within awareness, because awareness is the light in which all the non-objects, regardless of as subtle they may be, they are known, they are conceptualized, they are experienced. Okay? Where would awareness go if awareness is that in which all phenomenal object, comes and go? Awareness is always there, everywhere, present, and the same, never change, never doing anything. I'm just the light in which, things experience, they are revealed, they are illumined, and they are known by the light of my consciousness. But we return to the dream, and we return to our wakefulness after this deep sleep. Time resumes. So where did it go during deep sleep? Where did this time go during this deep sleep? From where did it resurrect? So time disappears, objects disappear, experience disappear, knowledge disappear. From where does this come from again? From where did it resurrect again? And why? So all those questions that relate still to the understanding, how can this Maya, this avidya, this ignorance, come about? How does it operate? What is this mechanisms, So how, why, from where did it resurrect? Why? Vedanta ascribes two powers to Maya, a concealing power called Varana and a projecting power called Vikshipa. It asserts that during deep sleep, as well as in dream and awakening, the knowledge of the self is concealed from us. We have these two powers, as we have unfolded before. One is the concealing, the covering, and the other is the projecting, Vikshipa. Vedanta asserts that during deep sleep, over the three states, deep sleep, we know that there is nothing going on and there is nothing being projected. So there is blankness, okay? It feels good because there is no duality, there is no time, there is no object, but yet there is no self-knowledge. Ignorance is just suspended, or it's just numb, So, but then also during dream and awake, so we have the projection of the world, the dream world of objects, and the physical material worlds of Ishvara, Maya Ishvara. So we have all of this, deep sleep and the other two states. In all of these three states, the knowledge of the self is concealed from us. And why is this concealed from us? We would believe that in the awakening state, at least, we have the brightest kind of potential of our intellect in the awakened state, but yet, we fail to fully recognize the nature of reality, the nature of my reality as consciousness, of myself as consciousness. No? The question then arises, if we are the self, how can we ever not know it? Oh, this is an amazing question. Huh? So if we are consciousness, if we are the self, how can we ever miss it? How can we ever not know it if I'm shining all the time? It seems incredible that this can be so. Yet it conforms to our experience. Claudio, that's a good one. Huh? I know that you have been working on this one. So, if I am consciousness, I am existence, how can I ever not know it? How could I have missed it before Vedanta? And especially now that I have Vedanta in my life, how I'm not certain about it yet, you know? What is somehow obstructing this certainty, this clarity, this, you know, about my true nature? This is a most beautiful question. If we are the self, how can we ever not know it? It seems incredible that this can be so, yet it conforms to our day-to-day experience. This is why we want to ask someone, do you know that you are limitless, pure, unconcerned awareness, consciousness, existence, and your nature is joy, is limitless, is bliss? You know that? So if we would ask anybody that, people would look at us in a kind of a funny way that would indicate that people think that we are a little bit cuckoo, a little bit crazy, you know? So we define ourselves by the things with which we identify. We identify with what? We miss to identify with the light. We are shining this light. This light is bright and it's shine. It's just illumining our mind, and it's some illumining our field of interaction. We are just this light, this beautiful, amazing light in which everything comes and goes. And somehow we miss to identify ourselves with our essential nature, you know, the purity beyond time, the timeless, beginningless. We define ourselves by the things with which we identify. The body, the mind, the intellect, the five sheets, and the actions, the memories, the things, the people, everything we somehow, we by which we somehow we define ourselves, you know, our history and so on. And as these points of identification are always changing, so all this body, mind, intellect, and you know, and my jobs, you know, my memories, my stories, you know, and things keep changing all the time, you know. So and as these points of identification, that's very nice. These points of identification are always changing. What happened with our identity? Our identity is just like, oh my God, I don't know what I am. And we usually say, I don't know who I am, because we take it personally, but it's better to say, I don't know what I am. You know, I thought I was a person. I'm trying to define myself as a person, but I'm just failing every time, because this person keeps changing. A moment I feel like this, another moment I feel like that. Sometimes I feel up there, high in the sky. Sometimes I feel crashed on the ground. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm pure love. Sometimes I'm pure hate, you know, and I'm irritation. So, I mean, who is this guy here? So we can never really properly identify this person, because these identities always change. So we have a host of identities depending upon various and shifting circumstances. So this is the trouble, and this is a beautiful problem, because this is when we understand that our problem is no longer a problem of experience, but a problem of identity. when we understand that there is no way I can come up with an identity of myself, because it has no substance. It's a flux of change, a continuous change, 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 change. So then I begin searching for my true identity, which does not depend on this shifting circumstance of the field. My true identity should not be connected to the field. The field is changing, and the body mind here is part of this field. It's an object like every other object. If I identify with this body mind and with the other objects of the field, I will feel as if I'm changing all the time, because the body mind is changing with all the change that the field presents to us. The new experience, all the experience of the changing Dharma field are going to bring changing experience. And if I'm identified with this shifting circumstance and the experience of this body-mind, I will take myself as a changing I, a changing self. And this changing self feels to be very, very unstable and insecure, because you never know what this self is going to be in the next moment. Not to say that you feel that this self is a byproduct of the field, because these shifting circumstances define me all the time. Oh my God, I'm not an independent self. I depend on everything that's in the field. Therefore, I have to go and try to control and manipulate the field, so that I try to make it stable, so that I can get a solid sense of identity for myself. Does it make any sense? So how can I have identity which depend upon various shifting circumstances? Mithya, always changing. And I'm just trying to make it stable. Impossible. This is the case because we think we are the phenomenon. We witness, we believe that we are the field. We believe that we are Jagat, Dharma field, which provides us with our Pravada Karma, the field of experience, So this is the case because we think that we are the phenomenon we witness. Vedanta says that we are wrong in making that assumption, that we are ignoring the most obvious fact. So we are witnessing the field, the changing phenomenon, field of objects. And we are missing the most obvious. The most obvious is the witness conscious subject principle itself. So the changing can only exist, against the background of something that's changingless. This witness, non-experiencing subject conscious existence. That's what we are. The witness of the changing field, this phenomenon of changing objects. This is what does never change. This is what we are, the changingless, akarta. This is our only abiding identity. It's something that is always there, unchanging, unaffected by the field. The field can go kaput, can happen anything in the field, and we are never affected. Regardless of how adverse circumstances the field may be, I do not change. I'm never really affected. This is what does not change. This is our only abiding identity. In deep sleep, the objects disappear, and only the witness remains. But tamas predominates in deep sleep. So we can never in deep sleep we have this ocean of tamas, and then there is no reflectivity, there are no objects, and then there is no subject-object. The jiva does not really appear as a vishwa, and then the objects do not really appear, and then there is a subtle vrit there that witness blankness of the lack, absence of object. So in deep sleep, we have this beautiful experience, but due to the nature of deep sleep, tamas is predominant. And what happened with the tamas? The intellect, which requires a lot of sattva, is not there to recognize, its nature. So it's never going to recognize itself because the intellect, the jiva there in that state of deep sleep is almost inexistent. So the intellect is not there. So in deep sleep, the object disappears and only the witness remains, but this tamas predominates in deep sleep, so the intellect is not there to recognize itself as the witnessing subject conscious principle. The mirror is there, but the room is dark. Another way to present it. The mirror is there, consciousness, but there is no reflectivity in that tamasic mirror of the deep sleep state. So how we come to forget that we are the witness conscious existence principle is a mystery that can be solved only by remembering that we are the witness. We are the witnessing principle, or witnessing non-experiencing conscious existence principle. We are not an experiencing entity. We are not. You understand? Jiva is an experiencing entity, but we are not. We are just the witnessing conscious principle. So how we can understand this? We have to remember that we're the witness conscious principle. Then we realize we were never unaware of our true self. We are this light, and we are always ever present, even before the birth of this body, even after the death of this body-mind, of this body. Then we realize we were never unaware of our true self. Again, we must resort to the snake in the rope. The shifting phenomenon we think we are is the snake. So we have this shifting phenomenon, the world, names, colors, and forms, which is like a snake superimposed on the rope. Again, we must resort to this most traditional of ours metaphor. The shifting phenomenon we think we are is the snake. The body, the mind, and everything that is known and experienced through the body-mind complex. How did the snake come to be? So I say, wow, Maya, how did you bring about this snake? And then the scripture comes, it didn't. Maya did not bring about this snake. So fundamentally, the bottom line is that we can only understand Maya to the extent that we understand that it's not really existing. It's not really real. It doesn't. How did the snake come to be? It did not come to be. There is no snake here. There is only the rope. There is no names in form. There is only consciousness. There is only me. It's all appearing within the scope of my conscious awareness. You understand? It didn't. Where did the rope go when the snake appeared? So the appearance of the universe comes due to Maya. So where did the rope, the consciousness go when the universe? Right. Oh no, the universe now is covering consciousness, covering when? Is that so? So is the snake covering the rope? No, it's not. Names and forms, all the names of all forms of the ornaments of gold, are they concealing the gold? Are they covering the gold? Are they hiding the gold? Are they eclipsing the gold? No, they are not. You understand? So where did this rope go when the snake appeared? The rope never went anywhere. The snake never really appeared. It was just an imagination. It was just a non-apprehension of what is the fundamental nature of that snake, which is rope. It never really appeared. The rope never disappeared. Consciousness never disappeared. It appears as concealed by its superimposition, but it's always there, shining. It's the light in which all this superimposition comes, remains, and goes, and keeps changing. I am the light that is revealing everything here. All these superimpositions are revealed in my light. That's the point. The rope never disappeared. The snake only appears in imagination when we don't know that the snake is a rope. The snake is the projection power, Vikshipa. The absence of knowledge of the rope that makes the snake projection possible is a varana. So the ignorance or the absence of knowledge, ignorance is just absence of knowledge. And this absence of knowledge of the rope that makes the projection of the snake. You know, this absence of knowledge is avarana. And then what it produced? It produced the vikshipa. We have to come up with a solution. There is something going on here. I don't really understand what it is. So let's project it. Then comes vikshipa. Vikshipa is the projecting snake. And avarana is the absence of knowledge that somehow made me fail to recognize that it was just a rope. The former cannot occur without the later. So Vikshipa, avarana cannot occur without Vikshipa and vice versa. Vikshipa cannot occur without avarana. The text sometimes gives the impression that avarana is the cause of Vikshipa. But that's like saying that space is the cause of object, or the light is the cause of object. Okay? The two cannot be separate. We cannot separate space from object or light from the object. Projection and ignorance are inseparable companions, much as objects and space. So this power of projection, this power of ignorance is built in our subtle bodies. And that's why we have so much of a hard time to recognize our fullness of completion, our wholeness, our limitlessness. We have a hard time because we have this constant ignorance of avarana and vikshipa that again and again makes us identify with phenomenal objects, beginning with our bodies. Okay? So this pair of opposites, vikshipa and avarana, is what rajas and tamas in the personal level is what somehow makes us again and again, missing the reality, the substantial reality of this universe as consciousness, and then we take consciousness to be the jiva. But that is saying that space. Okay, the verse says, the two cannot be separated. Projection and ignorance are inseparable companions, much as object and space. The verse says that projections are painful. Yeah, the verse says that the jiva, then this power, which is projection, rajas, it makes the jiva to be afflicted with this power and subject to desire, anger, hatred, and all kinds of negative, uncomfortable emotions. The verse says that this projections are painful. They afflict us with desire, frustration, anger, irritation, etc. Anger is a frustrated or abstract desire, and we get frustrated because, and then irritation and anger comes on different, degrees. When we mistake the self for the not self, awareness for the things that appear in awareness, how nice, and when we mistake awareness for the things that appear in awareness, it's so easy to get identified with what appears within the scope of my conscious existence, when we mistake ourselves for the body, mind, and everything that appears, within my mind. When we mistake the self for the not self, when we mistake consciousness for the things that appear in consciousness, we also mistake the locus of any happiness we experience. We think happiness is in the object. So if we don't get it right, which is the case with most every one of us, when we don't get it right, when we mistake the self for what the self illumines, when we mistake the self for what the self reveals, conscious revealed, when I just get identified with the content of my conscious existence, what happens? So immediately I experience some joys, and I mistake the locus of my joy, my happiness, my satisfaction, and I project it to be in the object. Understand? So I mistake the self for the not self. I take the objects that I illumine and reveal to be myself, and then I go for these objects. Every time I gain them, I succeed in gain them, I experience certain bliss, and then what happens? I mistake the locus of my happiness. I believe that the happiness is in the objects, and then we are bound to objects. We go about our entire life chasing objects. So we got things wrong, and then I revert the source of happiness, and I find that the happiness are in the objects of I experience. So we pursue objects that we believe will give us pleasure. And we run from objects we believe will give us pain. Life then becomes a series of charges and retreats. In a never-ending battle, we cannot win. Why? Because happiness is not in any object. Happiness is our nature. We go entire life running to gain, running to avoid, but the bottom line that's we are running. And when we are running, we are usually afflicted, We suffer from anxiety and so on, stress. So life then becomes a series of charges and retreats in a never-ending battle. We cannot win, for happiness is misplaced in objects, whereas it's just our fundamental nature. Our nature as consciousness is happiness, because happiness is nothing but lack of limitation. When I'm not lacking anything, when there's nothing missing, nothing to be added, and so on. And then I experience happiness because nothing should be different from what it is. Nothing is missing. So happiness is not an object. Happiness is our nature as limitlessness, that which is full, whole, and complete, which lacks nothing, needs nothing. We experience our nature in the presence of objects when desire ceases, and we then make the fatal mistake of confuse the self with the object, so the happiness is coming from the object. And then I go crazy for these objects that gives me pleasure until they no longer give us pleasure. And then we change, we turn to other objects, we keep moving. And that's why we are here. That's why we are here in a Vedanta class. That's why we are here reading these words. We are trying to clear up this very confusion. So this is what Vedanta is for, to clear up this misunderstanding between the self and the not self. This conscious existence that we are with the objects, beginning with from our body, mind, emotions, memories, experience in general that appears to us. Okay, we have a few more minutes, so we can have somebody else saying something, maybe, or not. Let me see who is still here.
Orlando, the whole time is going through this process is I've got a question that's just nagging at me. It's like, why is there Maya? Why is there duality? Why does it even, just understanding like why, right? If we're consciousness, then why all of this?
Yeah, why is the wrong question? I mean, we have a hard time to understand Maya. I mean, just imagine to understand the motivation behind Maya, which would be like assuming that consciousness was motivated to produce the universe by the means of Maya, you know? I mean, it's impossible. We, at the most we can try to understand, David, why, how it comes about, if that gives us some peace of mind, you know? But to go for the why is the wrong question, because it's like eating. More you're gonna eat, you know, more this why is going to grow, and there is no answer for this why. You may find different theories. Oh, maybe consciousness was so bored, alone, one without a second, have nobody to play with, and then you say, oh, let me just activate this power within me and project the world of duality, and then I get lost. I become my jivas, and then I start trying to find my way back home. So there are a few stories out there on those lines, you know, but nobody knows, and the scriptures do not give any hints about that, especially the Vedanta. You understand it? Yeah. It's good trying to understand how Maya comes. It's difficult to really understand it, but to have an understanding of its reality, it's important. In reality, and if Maya, as Mario said, if Maya is unreal, how can the world that it projects to be real? So the world is not real. And then Mario was bringing a very nice question. If the world is not real, so, and then the jiva is not real. Yes, the jiva is not real. You know, the jiva in its body-mind construct is not real. But the point is that the jiva is not really a jiva. The whole point of Vedanta is helping the jiva understand that, oh, I'm not really the jiva, I have consciousness, I'm just light reflecting on this jiva, or on this mind, on this subtle body to produce this reflect consciousness, which is nothing other than consciousness to begin with, you understand? So we are the light, David. You need to understand and accept it. You know, it's a very nice compliment. I am the light in which things appear and disappear, in which things are revealed and known and experienced. And this is our experience. If we really follow the logic of Vedanta, we start, you know, and then we start saying that, wow, the scriptures are right. I am this consciousness. I'm not the mind. I'm not the intellect. I'm not the bodies. I can tell. I'm not the states of deep sleep, dream and awaken. So that's the purpose of Vedanta, is to clear up this confusion between I, consciousness, and I, the body-mind, I, the mind, I, the ego, I, the intellect. I'm not the intellect, I'm not the ego, I'm not the thoughts and emotions. I am the light of consciousness that shines the intellect in every thought, in every breath that occurs in this subtle body. Right? So anybody else? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends. So we meet again next time, Ishwara willing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Much love.
Thank you, Alindo. Thank you.
Thanks, Orlando.
Ciao.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lynn.